Once upon a time, about exactly 1 month ago, I set out for the most dense reading month of my life. How did I do, you might ask? Hey, welcome back to BellTube. I'm Brian Bell. So we've got lots to talk about today. I'm going to get right into it. Of course, today's video is the March TBR. But before we get into March, I want to share with you some amazing books some BellTube community members sent to me. That's just incredible. I never expected anybody to send me anything, but this is really great stuff. I want to show this book first because it was part of my February TBR, and that is Shogun by James Clavell. That was sent to me by Alan over at the Library of Alexandria. Thank you so much, my friend. Not only is this just an amazing looking book for my shelves, I read the entire thing in February. I had only planned to read maybe one book, two books, three books within the six of here prior to the show starting, but it was too good. I couldn't put it down. I read the whole thing. Thank you once again, Alan. Another viewer, Darren, also sent me this book, which is book one in the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. Such a nice gesture, Darren. Thank you so much. I'll probably get to this book sometime in the summer, but it's really great to start the collection with book one. Again, Darren, thank you so much for sending this. This was really, really kind of you. When you talk about getting unexpected book mail, it's something on an entirely different level when the author, a very, very famous author named Janny Wirtz, sends me To Ride Hell's Chasm. Awesome. I am so excited for this book. This has moved up the TBR quite a bit. It had been on my list, but I just never really knew when I was going to get to it. I've had the opportunity to communicate with her a few times on Twitter, or X, or whatever we call it now, and just a fantastic human being, and I cannot wait to dive into her works and to share with you all what I'm thinking about them as we go. This will probably wind up in the April TBR for reasons you'll see when we get into March here in a moment, but once again, thank you, Janny, for sending me this book. I cannot wait to get into it. It was very, very gracious of you, and I'm looking forward to it tremendously. Another book that was sent to me electronically that I don't want to leave out. This was actually sent, I think, back in maybe December, but Nick Horvath sent me Sledge versus the Labyrinth, which is his book. It is going to be coming up here shortly on the March TBR list, but I did want to give Nick a shout out for sending me the book. Super kind of you. I can't wait to read it. Before we get into my thoughts on February, because I did not read as much as I had hoped to, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, and before we get into the March TBR, if you do like what's happening here on BellTube, please do click the like and subscribe button. The reason primarily is that it helps other people find the channel. So if you want other people to find us, the easiest way and the best way that you can do that is to hit that like button. And if you're not already a subscriber, and maybe you've been here a couple of times, feel free to hit it and help those other people find us. One very cool announcement that I want to share with you. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not, but I have in fact started a Patreon. The link will be down in the description. You can go check it out if you like. By no means feel like you need to support at any level. There's certainly a free option as well, but one of the tiers actually involves a one-on-one direct phone call with me once per month. So if that's of interest to you, the link will be in the description, and let's see how this Patreon goes. I think it'll be kind of fun. All right, getting into February, I read Shogun. The book is, of course, it's a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm not even so sure you can rank it with stars because it's just so epic in scope, and the characterizations are everything you want in a novel. A friend of mine asked me the other day, she said, is Shogun really fantasy? Does that mix in with what you're doing on BellTube? And I said, well, a couple of things. First off, it's historical fiction, so that does fall within the realm of what we do here on the channel. But really, Shogun is kind of like a fantasy book, just basically without the magic. If you think about it, it's got pirates and boats and swords and honor and duty and kingdoms, and it's all these things that we read mostly in fantasy. It just has a very almost non-existent magic system. Maybe there's one in there. Maybe some of you who have read Shogun can tell me if I missed the magic system, but in my opinion, the entire book is a magic system. What a fantastic novel. I'm excited to continue through the Asian saga. I don't know when I would get to the next book. These books are gigantic. Shogun itself clocks in at just under 1,300 pages, but there's nothing wasted. There's no slow parts. I give a huge recommend to anybody who's starting Shogun. And just remember too, it's divided up into 6 sections, so you don't need to read the whole thing at one time. And the writing itself is really accessible. It's not archaic in nature. It's not overly dense. And I think you'll find that it reads a little bit faster than the size of the book might indicate in your mind. Give Shogun a try. I promise you will not regret it. So, a couple of months ago, we did a poll on the channel and I did a video saying which one of these series would you like me to start next. And by barely just a little bit, the Malazan Book of the Fallen won. So in February, on top of Shogun, I also read Gardens of the Moon. Now, if you've watched the channel much, you know I like atmospheric books. I like books that challenge me a little bit. I like books that bring me out of my comfort zone and give me an experience in and of itself, just beyond the story. And for you Malazan fans out there, you already know I loved this book. I cannot wait to get to Dead House Gates. It's gonna be a minute before that happens, and I'll explain why when we get into the March TBR. But thank you who voted for Malazan Book of the Fallen. I love it. It's exactly what I'm looking for. We're going to continue on through February. But again, what a crazy, crazy start to the month so far between Shogun and Gardens of the Moon. Another book that I read in February was going to be Demon in White by Christopher Ruocchio. That was part of TBR Mountain's density challenge for February. Folks, I just couldn't get to it. By the time I got through Gardens of the Moon and Shogun in its totality, because my original thought was I would do Gardens of the Moon, I would do about half of Shogun, and then I would do Demon in White. And as I got into Shogun, I realized I didn't want to stop and come back and try to remember everything that happened after Demon in White. So I pushed Demon in White into March. But what I did read is Return of the Griffin by J.C.M. Byrne. Fantastic book. I love this comic book style novel. It's fun, it's got adventure, it's got memorable characters. It's a much lighter read, obviously, than Sun Eater or Malazan Book of the Fallen, and that's exactly what my brain required to finish out the month of February. I'm really looking forward to getting into book 3. Not exactly sure when it's going to happen, but now that I know that these books can really work for me, similarly to the Alex Verus series or the Dresden Files, where they can kind of slide in between some more dense works, I know exactly how to fit this in. And throughout 2024, I know I'll easily be able to get through all of this series because there's going to be a lot of other dense books that this can slide in between. Great book, big recommend. So what did I listen to on Audible? Well, you lit RPG fans of the channel, I promised you guys I was going to get through Cradle. I almost did. I got through Dread God. It was I mean, is that what the kids say now? I don't know. It was just okay. It's sort of like where I've been with Cradle the whole way through. I want to share again, if you haven't already seen the Lit RPG Starter Guide that's on this channel, I'll link it at the end of the video. Check it out. Cradle is not something I would recommend for people that are new to the genre. And in fact, Cradle really isn't Lit RPG. It's more of what they call cultivation fantasy, which is not really my jam, so to speak. But I'm already on book 12 now. I'm on Waybound. That's the second Audible book that I'm reading this month. By the time this video airs, I think I'll have finished Cradle completely. I'll come back and do a recap, but folks, I have to tell you, if you're a giant Cradle fan, you're probably not going to be overly excited about it, and I'm not going to make a whole long video about it, because after 12 books, I do have some thoughts to share with you. Being such a big fan of progression fantasy and lit RPG, even though I just said a couple of minutes ago it's more cultivation, I have thoughts I want to share with you. I kind of understand why it's popular, and I think for a very certain market, this would be a really great series. Obviously, millions of people have read the Cradle series. Will White has done a fantastic job. I believe he's a self-published author. So hats off to him for the entrepreneurship of the whole series. For me, though, I'm doing book 12. I don't expect that all of a sudden something's going to change tremendously, but we'll finish out the series because we are this far. Okay, so let's talk about what I am revealing for the March TBR. It didn't make it into February for the aforementioned reasons, but Christopher Ruoccio's Sun Eater, particularly Demon in White, is first up. By the time you're watching this video, I will have started on March 1st, Demon in White. I loved Howling Dark so much. It was really difficult for me to take a month off of Sun Eater. But at the same time, given what I read in February, I think it was probably the right thing to do to be in the right headspace for it. I'm hoping that it starts off pretty much where Howling Dark left off, because it sort of left us wondering, okay, I need to know what happens next. I've heard nothing but great reviews about Demon in White. For a lot of people, it's their favorite book in the Sun Eater series. I'm super excited to get to it. That is the first book that I'll be hitting in March. Next up in March, we're not going to go right back into a dense book. We're going to go into a fun book, something that I am very excited about. Of course, I'm talking about Sledge versus the Labyrinth by Nick Horvath. Again, thank you for sending me an e-copy of this book. I can't wait to read it. It sounds like it's something up my alley. We've talked about anti-heroes here on the channel before, Sandman Slim really being one of my all-time favorites. And while I don't think this is exactly Sandman Slim, the vibes that I'm getting from the descriptions that Nick has provided me feel kind of like that. It feels like kind of a gritty anti-hero who's perhaps had enough. And that is right up my alley. Sledge versus the Labyrinth coming up in March on the channel. After we get done with those couple of books, we are returning to Discworld. Yes, Discworld. I'm going to be reading the second book in the City Watch arc called Men-at-Arms. I loved Guards Guard so much. If you guys know me, I don't DNF books very often. I've only DNF'd that I can remember one book, and I DNF'd it twice. It was The Color of Magic, which is book one in publication order of Discworld. But I was talked into, like many of you, saying, you know, Brian, you started in the wrong place. Start with something like Guards Guards. What a totally different reading experience Guards Guards was for me compared to The Color of Magic. I know Terry Pratchett has also said that he didn't really have his bearings around him when he was doing that first book. But wow, did he come into his own for Discworld for sure by Guards Guards. I'll probably read all of Discworld over the next several years, but I'm looking forward to Men-at-Arms quite a bit. The characters were super memorable. As my friend Tori over at Tori Talks mentions all the time regarding the character of Carrot in Guards Guards, Carrot must survive at all costs. I totally agree. What an amazing character. I'm really excited to get back into Discworld this month. Another author that I love a lot, and I really, really enjoy his Saga of the Forgotten Warrior series, is Larry Correia, and I'm going to be reading Hard Magic in March. This was on the December TBR. It slipped, and then we went into that whole DNF challenge for January, which was insane. Then we went into Mount Density challenge pretty much for February, but now is the time for this kind of grim noir, detective-based hard magic book. I don't know what it's about, but it seems like it'll be a great palate cleanser after coming off the month that I just did. Hard Magic's coming up in March. I will get back to you guys on what I thought about it and if I recommend it. So those are 4 physical books that I plan to read in March. I suspect Demon in White will probably take me as long to read as the other 3 combined. If there is room in the month, I may start in with the 4th book in the Sun Eater series, but that's kind of a to be determined. I just don't know how much time will get left. So let's talk about some Audible books that I'm going to do. We talk a lot about Lit RPG on the channel, and Audible is really where I do 99% of my Lit RPG. I'm going to be starting with A Throne of Lies by Eric Uegland. This is book 10, I believe, in the Bad Guys series. And yeah, I know, book 10, you're like, Brian, come on, I don't want to read book 10, book 11, book 12. These books are pretty short. They're super entertaining. I love the author's sense of humor. And the narrator, Neil Helligers, for me, is a top 3 narrator on Audible. He may not be your cup of tea. I don't know, but for some reason, there's something about his acting ability that resonates tremendously with me. The great Neil Helliger's reading On a Throne of Lies is my first up Audible book for the month of March. Next up on Audible, it will be He Who Fights with Monsters, book number 10 by Shirtle Loon. Now, I've had my issues with this series. Some books I've absolutely loved and gave them like 4.5 stars, maybe 4 3/4 stars. Some books I absolutely have not loved. So it's a little bit of a hit or a miss on this series. But it's also kind of one of those where I've grown attached to the main character and I've grown attached to his companions. And I want to find out if the author will bring out some more character arcs in some of the other companions. To me, that is what this series is missing the most. The main character, Jason, I like a lot. I like the plot of the book. The magic system is incredible. It's all very original. The only thing that I've been hoping for is that the author finds a way to bring in some of these other characters that we've grown to love by book 10 and develop them a little bit deeper. Let's find out a little bit more about their backstories, their motivations, what their ambitions are. I think by book 10 we deserve that. Hopefully we're going to get it. I'll report back. Also on Audible this month, I plan to read Wings Spread by Sean Oswald, again narrated by the great Neil Helligers. This was another book that was on my December TBR. It slipped all the way into March. As I'm kind of new to Booktube, as you guys know, these things are probably bound to happen, but I'm looking forward to getting into it. The nice thing is that these books that I've got on the Audible TBR, they're generally pretty short books, so I know there's going to be plenty of time to hit all of it. That's about 7 or 8 books for the month of March. That's kind of where I want to be around because I want to also be able to focus on making great content for you guys too. And if all I'm doing is working my regular day work plus reading constantly, it really doesn't leave me as much time as I want to create content for you guys. So it's important that I balance out these thicker, denser, longer reads with some quicker ones just so we can keep the BellTube community growing. One other thing that I do want to share about Sun Eater series is that if I get through all of these books in March, I will start book 4, but the plan is also to I'm giving it a little bit of a sneak peek of April's TBR, to Ride Hell's Chasm by Janny Wirtz. And the only reason that I'm doing both of those in the same month is because I believe book 4 in Sun Eater is shorter than Demon in White. And for that reason alone, I believe I can pack both those dense books into April. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but if there is a chance to get into Sun Eater book 4 before the end of the month, I would like to do that to space off a little bit of the reading density in April. So we've talked a little bit about what I'm going to read in March and what I did read in February, and that's going to bring us to our One for the Road segment. And that's recognizing the things that you've done right and the progress that you have made, even if it isn't exactly what you set out for. I did not accomplish this dense calendar of reading in February the way that I hoped, but I can recognize that I did some good work. And I think that that's important for our One for the Road today, to know that sometimes we do set big goals and sometimes we put timelines to them. And if we don't hit them, so long as we've made progress along the way, those goals probably aren't going anywhere. So if they involve fitness goals, if they involve financial goals, if they involve your reading goals, if they involve your relationship goals, One for the Road is to recognize the progress that you did make. Even if you didn't get all the way up to the top of the mountain, you got part of the way up to the top of the mountain, and that's better than not even trying to get on the mountain at all. And I think for a lot of people, we have a hard time, and even myself included, and I give myself these One for the Road reminders quite often, but I think sometimes we just don't give ourselves the credit that we deserve for making any progress. Let's try to do that today. I want to hear in the comments below what you're planning to read in March. Of course, like I said, if you want to help other people find the channel, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and if you are interested in the Patreon and the different membership levels and all of that stuff, go take a look. It's in the description. I'd love to see you there. I would love to do those one-on-one phone calls with some of the BellTube community as well. Try if you can to spread some positivity out in the world today or this weekend coming up or the following week or the month of March. If we can do our part to spread a little bit of positivity, the world will be a better place, and we have a direct hand in that. Let's take advantage of it. And of course, here's your fortune.